And so you're talking about the visit that they come into, and if you compare from when they first contact you to when they have not graduated, but when they're sort of fully transformed, what's that full transformation look like for them once you have worked with them and they are where they want to be?
I think it's an ongoing thing. I don't know that there's ever a full transformation. I think we're as people, we're always evolving and changing, and that's true physically as well as emotionally, psychosocially. So it's a long-term relationship. It's not something that's going to just change overnight. I think the initial benefits that people see are going to be just overall improved wellness, feeling better about themselves, feeling better physically and emotionally, and feeling good in their own skin, feeling better about who they are, and not just through a prescription, but through the big picture. And then I think that as we age, we're continually changing. Our other health problems may or may not arise. Our hormones continue to change, so we may need to tweak things. We may need to change things along the way, and obviously, medicine's always changing. Um, so to say like what is the end of it that at the end or at the transformation, I don't know that there's ever an end point. Now that doesn't mean that I am going to just be constantly seeing people and them requiring to come in for visit after visit after visit. Obviously those things are going to get settled to where it's less frequent that they need adjustments, but that's always available. That's always out there for them to for me to grow with them, and make those adjustments.
So describe what they in general describe when they first come to you. What's their emotional state? Obviously, what's their physical state like to when they first come to you? What brings them there? How are they feeling when they come into you?
It obviously everyone's not the same, and so for me to give a general statement obviously wouldn't be true. But some of the patients who I see, especially there's the women in menopause who are you know have been going through hot flashes, poor sleep, joint pains, emotional changes, for a while, and they've been asking various doctors who all say, "Oh, you're fine, you're fine. You're still having periods. We're not there yet. There's nothing we can do." There's the patients who haven't had a period in a few years, and they've been having these changes, and no one's been able to help them, or they've tried one medication, they had some side effects, and they stopped it and never went back to their doctor because they didn't feel like there were other options, or they I have women who have had breast cancer who have been told, absolutely not, we won't even talk about hormones with you. I have men who I actually had two men recently, both in the same day, that had been seeing other doctors who are great doctors. I know who they are, and they're great doctors, and they're stuck in a system that they just don't have a lot of time. And so it's not necessarily that they're not good doctors, but where the patients came for another opinion. And at the end of the visit, I kind of was steering them back to their initial doctor that both said, no, you're the first person that's actually sat and explained things to me. So sometimes they're patients who are already in treatment and are doing okay, but they just feel like they don't know what's going on and nobody's explaining anything. And so a lot of times they're patients who are coming to me frustrated, whether it be because they haven't been treated or they've been treated, but they don't understand it, or um, they don't know the different options that are out there. Um, and so it's the physical, and I know I keep going back to it, but it's the emotional and psychosocial aspect of it that is a lot of times the symptoms for people too, that brings them to me, that they're looking for another option where traditional doctor's appointments just don't allow for it. And again, like I said, it's not, I think I sometimes get a little disenchanted when I hear people who are doing um, concierge type stuff, and they'll almost criticize other healthcare workers, other doctors. And I think a lot of times they're not bad. They're great. They're just stuck in a system where they don't have the ability to provide the care they want to care. They want to provide. I was there. So, that's part of why I'm doing this, is because I couldn't provide the type of care I wanted the way the system is right now.
Hmm.
And so I'm seeing people who are coming looking for a better option.
Okay. What compare their state, not their compare their state of mind when they come into you and compare their state of mind 6 months later when they're in a way different spot without necessarily talking about symptoms.
Yeah. I think that it is and I think it's important that you said without talking about their symptoms, because I think a lot of times, even if their symptoms are not where they want it to be and are not optimized, they are so much happier. They are so much more content and feel that they've been heard, that someone's listening to them, that somebody's working with them and someone's trying to help them optimize their lives. And I think that that is sometimes the biggest thing. When I've had patients that say to me, "You saved my life." Um, I didn't save their life. They weren't dying literally, but in their minds, they were miserable and nobody was listening to them. And just the fact that they feel like someone is listening and trying to help them is huge for them. And so, I mean, to me, that's the greatest thing for me is seeing that people feel like they're being cared for. And I think that that's the biggest difference is when I see patients and even after just a couple visits and they can say to me, "Thank you so much. I feel so much better. I feel like, I still have this, I still have that, but I know we're working on it. I know it's going to get better." Or at least I'm so much better than I was, and it's realistic expectations because like you said, it's not just the symptoms. I'll tell people if your goal is 100%, you're going to be disappointed almost every time. I'm never going to promise people I'm going to make them 100%. I want to be realistic with people. And I think knowing that I'm working with them and I'm listening to them, it just, it really uplifts them, and gives them hope and makes them feel just so much lighter.
Mm. Talk more if you can about any other any other things that some of your past patients have said to you, 6 months, 12 months down the line.
I had a patient the other day, that, was saying how she, I she has all her girlfriends that she wants to send because they all talk about this, and she just has finally had I'm working with her on her menopause symptoms as well as her sexual health symptoms, and I coincidentally, her husband was my patient initially.
Mm.
And I worked with him on his testosterone and his erectile dysfunction, and then he referred her to me. And then she now was saying to me, "Oh, I wanna send all my friends to you," um, because she just feels like she has a whole aspect of her life back, that she didn't have for a long time. And so, that's something that I think is important too, that when I can work with a couple, um, um regardless of how that couple looks, and to work with both of them and have them even just opening up their, relationship to talk about these things while I'm working with them, I think, it can be huge. And I think that for some of my patients, I've had them come back to me and say that they didn't talk about this stuff before, but then when I asked them questions and I talked about it, they then talked about it together.
Yeah.
Um, or, um from a sexual function standpoint, patients who just didn't know certain facts, certain options that were out there, and they come back and say, they are exploring new things out there, and it's opened their eyes, and they're just so happy that, just because they reach a certain age doesn't mean that part of their life is over where they thought it was.
Hmm. Good.